Our kids are dying, literally, and we've got to do something very different. If you look at the rise of social media and you look at the trends in youth mental health, whether it is anxiety or suicidality, they track.
Today's guest, Elan Gepner-Dales. From his early days as a filmmaker, Elan found his true calling in the stories written in the nervous systems of a youth, turning the breath into a bridge, connecting students, teachers, and entire cities to their own inner resilience.
And a stressed mind is not an efficient or effective mind. If we don't take the time to actually address the mind where the learning is happening, we're never going to have the results.
There's a certain sense of sovereignty that comes over your own body, like a certain sense of freedom, a certain sense of power and authority.
Upwards of 20 to 30% anxiety rates once kids get to high school. That's the environment our kids are coming into, and they're struggling.
What's one of the most beautiful things that a kid would have come to you after learning? The more you know, the more the unknown grows. I am Jitesh Vaswani, your host, and together, let's take this journey beyond the known. They say that before a storm, there is silence. But for too many of our children today, the storm is the only thing they have ever known. It is the noise of the street, the weight of the past, and the frantic vibration of a world that has forgotten how to simply be. But what if the antidote to the chaos wasn't found in a textbook? What if the key to peace was already living inside of us, hidden in the silent, rhythmic rise and fall of the breath? At the heart of this discovery is Sky Schools, a transformative program founded and inspired by global vision of Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. It is a movement built on the belief that a stress-free mind and a violence-free society are not just dreams, but human rights. Today's guest, Elan Gepner-Dales, has taken this vision and turned it into a lifeline for the next generation. From his early days as a filmmaker and a student of Art Semiotics at Brown University, Elan found his true calling in the stories written in the nervous systems of a youth. As the executive director of the Sky Schools USA, he has scaled this wisdom into 265 schools across 29 states, turning the breath into a bridge, connecting students, teachers, and entire cities to their own inner resilience. I am Jitesh, and this is Beyond the Known. Join us as we explore the intersection of ancient wisdom and modern transformation with Elan Gepner-Dales. Elan, I welcome you to the show. So how did a person studying media theater at Brown suddenly turn to breath? What happened?
Wow. I would have to back up to give you that story.
Let's go back.
So I had a very beautiful childhood in many ways, two extraordinarily loving parents, an opportunity to go to a school that was, it was called Miquon. It was in the woods. There were chickens and creeks, and I played. And so I had a very happy childhood in school and in the community. I grew up in Germantown in Philadelphia, very urban community, kids out in the street, lots of fun. I didn't have a lot of money. I had a lot of community. I had a lot of beauty. My mother's Swiss. I would go to Switzerland in the summers, be in nature, pretend I was an elf, live in the Lord of the Rings fantasies of those days. And so I had a very happy childhood. And then when I was 11, I had a classmate who passed away from leukemia. And it was the first time I'd really dealt with death in a meaningful way. I'd had a cat that passed that I was also distraught about, but this was a very different thing. And I was really contemplating death. You probably didn't anticipate that as the answer to how we got to breathwork from
But 11
from
is
film
young
studies.
For someone to experience something like that.
Yeah, so many people experience death throughout their childhood in different ways, but that was really my moment of experiencing it and reflecting on it, processing it. And it shattered my concepts of what I was as a happy child living in the world, enjoying life, and really had me reflecting on, well, what is this? What am I doing here? Why am I doing this? What's the point? I'm here and then I'm gone. And my family, my father's Jewish, kind of culturally more than in practice, and my mother is Protestant, but a very spiritual person, but not a church-going individuals. I didn't have a religious framework or some simple place to hang my hat on what was life, what was death, what was happening. So I reflected on it and became quite terrified about it and thought, well, I'm just a body. I'm going to be gone. I looked at all my friends around me as just robots, essentially, layers of flesh and bone that was irrelevant. It was going to be gone. And I didn't see spirit. I didn't see anything beyond. I just saw infinite nothing. And it was terrifying. And my mother gave me Autobiography of a Yogi, was an introduction I got at that age that was interesting. It definitely opened my mind to maybe different things, but it wasn't a simple solution for me. And so I experienced a lot of anxiety and depression and didn't often want to be alive through my adolescence and into my teens. It really stuck with me. It's just like, this is a joke, but I didn't want to die either. But I was kind of caught in this. And the art started to become something that was very therapeutic. It was one of the things that would bring me kind of into the present and not just caught in my mind and analyzing everything. And so I developed kind of a survival mechanism of hedonism and nihilism. And let me get as much pleasure out of this life as I can. I've got one of them. It doesn't mean anything. Let me enjoy it. And also, it doesn't mean anything. So joy becomes the only objective.
Right.
And I was very compassionate to others, very empathetic. I'll go further. Because I was experiencing so much suffering in my mind, when I saw others suffering, I was really drawn to them. And so I had kindness, but not so much for myself. I was very unhappy. But the arts were something that would kind of bring me to the present. I learned some self-hypnosis. That was one of the interesting things. My parents didn't want to put me on medication. They wanted to give me holistic practice. My mom was a TM meditator and a very, very spiritual person. My dad is a Tai Chi practitioner since his early 20s. And they had a real appreciation for holistic tools. And so they didn't just put me on medicine and medicate my depression. They trusted me to find my way through it and encouraged the things that brought me joy, and the arts were among those. So I ended up going to school with a passion of studying film and theater and poetry because those were the things that brought me to the moment. Those were my meditation before I had meditation. Those were the spaces where I connected with myself, where I connected with others, where I wasn't just caught in pleasure or analysis. And so I came out of school doing film work, doing documentary work, and I had a opportunity, I thought, to go to South Africa, Southern Africa, to work in a few different countries on a kind of micro doc for the Clinton Global Foundation to work on something called a microbicide to raise awareness about how this tool could be used to prevent the transmission of HIV, which was a passion of mine because it was a place of real suffering and inequity, which were causes I cared a lot about. And here was a strategy that could help. But the money fell through, and I found myself back in Philadelphia, the last place I wanted to be in the world, because it was just the same. And I wanted to go out and explore and do things. So my camera and being a filmmaker was kind of my tool for engaging, and I started going into schools in my area. At that time in Philadelphia, there was a lot of drama in the schools. There were a dozen plus schools that I think, and that number might be slightly high, but that were even lit on fire in protest by the kids due to the conditions. It was during the No Child Left Behind era where there was a real focus on test scores and creating equity through ensuring that all students were achieving at a certain level via tests, right? And holding that standard. The consequence of it was that a lot of the resources that were not deemed critical to your English score or your math score were falling away. So arts classes and other things. So I went into my local high school where I grew up, a block and a half from where I grew up, is a little further than that, but a block and a half from where I went to high school myself. And I went to this private school, a Quaker school, and then there was Germantown High. I went to Germantown Friends, and there's Germantown High. They're on two sides of a main avenue, and we had no real connection. But all my community friends went to Germantown High, and I got this scholarship to go to this wonderful, high-performing Quaker school. And when I got back to Philadelphia, I found that one of my friends was gone, and I heard that he was in prison. I don't know if that's 100% the case, but that was what I heard. Another friend had 3 kids, and another friend who I wasn't as close with but had passed away. And it was
this is right after.
This is coming out
school.
of college, coming back to Philadelphia.
Okay.
And so I kind of skipped this, but this is an important piece. I came back to this world where I had all this privilege to go study the arts and things I was passionate about. Now I come back to my community, and young people that I was friends with, my friends in the neighborhood 4 years ago had a very different life all of a sudden than I had experienced and where I was. And so the inequity was stark. And at the same time, there's all this drama going on in the schools, and I realized I have no idea really what their life was like. Like, I went to this private school, and we would hang out in the neighborhood and be friends, and we felt similar. We had similar interests, but I didn't realize how dramatically different our lived experience was. And then coming back from 4 years in college and seeing where they were and where I was, it became very apparent, right? What my privilege had given me. So I started going into the schools, and I was heartbroken to walk through multiple metal detectors to get into a building where the windows didn't open, and kids were crowded in classrooms of 30 and 40 kids and massive building of thousands of students. And when I asked what is needed, what's going on, what are the pain points here, I was hearing about the loss of art programs and other programs that really meant a lot to the kids because there was this focus on extra reading, extra math for testing. And that hit me. It hit me really hard because I don't think without the arts, I would have gotten through my adolescence. I mean that sincerely, they were a lifesaver for me, right? So coming back and seeing an environment where kids had so many challenges that they were navigating in their community, in their lives, at school, and not have resources to help them find peace, find ease, find joy, hit me, and I started volunteering. So this is part of the story because this became my passion, was working with young people.
Right.
At the same time, I was still struggling. So I found a lot of healing in finding service, right? Instead of simply being a filmmaker, I now was an educator. I now was somebody who was dedicated every day to how can I help these people. And that was deeply healing for me. It brought a lot of meaning to me. But I was still not sleeping and medicating myself in other ways and not taking care of myself. And I was still dealing with depression. So I was actually diagnosed bipolar.
Okay.
Which I don't really think was pharmacologically, a disposition as much as existentially. I was still lost in many ways. I was doing too much. I was burnt out very quickly because I was serving. Now, very quickly, we were in 30, different schools doing volunteer work. I had a network of artists that were coming in and helping, and it just kind of grew quickly. But wasn't supported. It wasn't a full-time job. Right now I was, trying to raise funds to build this grassroots nonprofit initiative, and I was exhausted and overextended and medicating myself in other ways. And so it got to a point where I really needed other tools. I was put on medication and I hated it.
Yeah.
It helped. But if I didn't take the medicine every 24 hours on the dot, I would start to shake and feel so uncomfortable. And it was like, this is not how I can live my life, being reliant on a pill.
Yeah.
What if I don't have it at some time? And this isn't really the answer. This isn't what I'm. So I started looking into more yoga and meditation and other tools, like Tai Chi, things that I had seen at home and kind of drifted away from. And I found a lot of value. I started meditating a few times a day. I learned a mantra. I found a teacher at that time that was very, very impactful in my life and built a practice. And it helped me, but I was still dealing with just tons of stress, right? So I was looking for tools, and I found tools that were very powerful working with Native American traditions and going into the woods, but then I had to go there. Like, that was the sanctuary, go into the woods.
Right.
But I couldn't bring it back day to day. and really sustain it, I found. And then I had the opportunity to take a weekend and learn sky breathing. And it was something that I'd been invited to by a friend. I was volunteering with the Philadelphia Youth Poetry Slam team at that point, and the head coach of the team had actually seen the practices in a competition. Kids from the Washington, D.C. team were doing this technique, Bastrika, or power breath, before the competition. And he learned about the sky breathing and took a course at University of Pennsylvania, and he loved it. And he said, Elan, you're interested in holistic practices. You've got to learn this. And for years, he kept telling me to go take this course. And I was like, I'm already meditating. I'm doing yoga. I don't need something else. I have a teacher, and I felt like it wasn't the answer I was looking for. But then I had a very convenient breakup that left me available for Valentine's weekend. And it was perfect, blessed timing. And I got a call saying there's this course this weekend. I was like, I have nothing to do. Let's go give it a shot finally. And I went, and it was amazing. I experienced so much relief with the sky breathing, so instantaneously. I went to such deep state of relaxation. So it wasn't something I was seeking per se, but what I was seeking was tools to bring to my students, how to share with them tools that really helped. And I was bringing the arts for healing purposes, not because I needed to train professional artists, but because I wanted them to have the therapeutic opportunity. And when I took that course, I just fell in love with the playful way that all of the information was shared and how profound the wisdom was. And so I told the teacher that I was going to just take everything I learned and start teaching it in the schools. And she said, that's great, and you can't do that. And she guided me on how I could learn more. And I went the next weekend and met the national director of Sky Schools. At that time, it was called Yes for Schools.
Right.
Bill Herman, one of my mentors and inspiration. And I saw how this was transforming lives for young people. And that really inspired me. And so I stayed with my practice. And I did my practice every single day. I got a challenge to do it for 40 straight days. And I was still drinking and doing all sorts of nonsense in my life, but I stuck with this practice for these 40 days. And at the end of 40 days, I was a different person. My stress baseline had just transformed remarkably. And I would walk into the same insane environments, the same schools that were just chaos and violence and arguments, and I was different. The situation changed, but I was calm. I was smiling. I was peaceful. I was responding instead of just reacting to people. And so this is beautiful. I started sharing it with others, thinking maybe this is just me. Maybe this was really good for me. But I started seeing other teachers have the same lights go back on and the joy come back.
So at this time, you started to bring into students or just to teachers?
My first step was to share it with educators.
Okay.
So, right now, I would say we have a crisis in education in terms of teacher burnout. But at that time in Philadelphia schools, there was over a 50% attrition rate of educators burning out. So I was not the only one stressed and overwhelmed in those buildings. All of my colleagues were exhausted and overwhelmed, and the kids were struggling and they were struggling. And you're showing up for young people, pouring your heart out. The resources aren't always there, often not. The pressure's on you. We're focused on the test scores, but where is the support for you? You're not paid like a professional. You're often working second jobs.
Right.
You're stretched so thin, and yet we're charging you with taking care of our most precious asset, our young people. That's what's
surprising to me about America.
It's so strange. You look at other cultures, Scandinavia and elsewhere, you have to be in the top 1-2% to become an educator. And then you're paid for it. You're paid as a really valued professional, right? And the result of that is you get resourced individuals who are capable and can deliver for our young people. And here we have amazing educators. I don't want to put them down in terms of their qualifications or the quality of what they bring, but they aren't supported at the level they deserve to be. They aren't esteemed at the level that they deserve to be. And so the burnout is real, right? And
So thank you for sharing that story. when you were going through, like, let's say depression, anxiety as a student, and now that you go into schools, you still interact with a lot of students in the present day, what percentage of students in America right now you think are depressed, going through anxiety, or going through some sort of an issue where they're not able to deal with their own mind, their own self, their own emotions?
I don't have to think about it. I can give you some numbers, and I will, but I'll give you the subjective first, and then what the data says. So the subjective is that I go into schools all across the US, and what you see is the stress. What you see is the dysregulation. What I hear, especially after COVID, but even prior, constantly from educators and from students, is that the mental health challenges are the really biggest issue at the moment. We had our Surgeon General declare a youth mental health epidemic. We really have a moment, and I don't want to be too prescriptive here, but if you look at the rise of social media, and you look at the trends in youth mental health, whether it is anxiety or suicidality, they track, right? And as our world has become more digital and young people are living in that space, as we have digital natives growing up in an environment that is not designed for their well-being. It's a place where you're judged and addicted to dopamine hits and concerned about your appearance and your reputation in an avatar, right? And then what somebody else's life should be or could be, and you're always craving something else. That's the environment our kids are coming into, and they're struggling. You have, to answer your question, upwards of 20 to 30% anxiety rates once kids get to high school. Okay. Right? You've got 30% of graduating 18-year-olds with diagnosable anxiety disorders. Now, what can we say about ourselves as a society if we look at our young people and see them struggling at those levels? And it can be up to twice as high for young women.
So that's what I was gonna get to. Like, so these are, I feel like these are the symptoms, like students' stress. What do you think is causing this? Like in America, like social media is, you touched upon social media, but what other factors are going on in a young person's life, which are kind of, like pushing them into these situations?
There's so many sources of stress in our world right now, right? And so I work in different communities. We work in very impoverished and under-resourced communities, in places where violence is real and hunger is real, and you're coming from households where parents don't have the resources. You might have a single parent working multiple jobs, and God bless them, working so hard, but it's so hard to give the kids the support they need. And they're in an environment where there's lack of resources, and that's one side of the spectrum. And then you have other side of the spectrum where you might have abundance of material resources, but so much pressure and the performance anxiety. And I need to get into the top university. We work with some of the highest performing schools in the country, and we see kids who are self-medicating, taking their own lives, clusters of suicides, right? The increase in youth suicidality has been like 75% increase prior to COVID and then since COVID. I mean, the trends are devastating. And now what are the contributing factors? Yeah, there's so many. There's our society and the pressure we apply on one side. There's the lack of resources. There's social media and this digital world where we're disconnected. There's the impact of a digital experience on the brain and literally what it's doing to the brain, right? And there's just the truth that adolescence is challenging and that growing up is difficult, but if we don't wrap the right love and support around it, it's going to be extremely difficult. And so that's the situation. It's not that there's, just no stress in the past, right? Or that something, all of a sudden there's just so much new stress. It isn't even necessarily that, but the resources we have in place to take care of young people are different and less, I would say. The experience of childhood, the way we connect, the way we play has changed dramatically. And we need to understand that technology has given us remarkable opportunity to find efficiency. And you don't need to go out of your house and knock on a friend's door to see if they're there to play. right? But instead, you're sitting behind a screen.
Yeah.
I'll give one little story that I think is powerful. I was listening to a interview with someone, an educator, and they were talking about an experience that they recently had on a field trip.
Okay.
Right, so field trips can be chaos, and this educator was sharing that he used to hate chaperoning field trips because, especially for middle school kids, it was just loud and it was, rambunctious, and it was like the bus was chaos, and it was like sit down and keep your hands to yourself and all that. And he didn't do it for years. And then he went recently on a field trip with kids and was chaperoning them, and it was all quiet. And he was like, this is beautiful. What's happening? It's so serene. It's so peaceful. 45-minute drive. They get off the bus at their destination. And he's like, oh, that was lovely. And then he looks at the kids, and they're angry and crying, and girls are fighting. And he's like, what is going on? And they were all on their phones the entire ride, ripping each other apart, telling people secrets, character assassinating, commenting on each other. And it's happening under the surface, on devices, without human connection. And that's just one example, but it's such a poignant one, right? Of the world we live in today.
Yeah.
And we need to take responsibility for it in a very different way. And so the joy of bringing breath work and meditation and these tools in is that instead of looking for the next dopamine hit on somebody liking your post or trying to bring joy or peace or ease from some external situation or gratification or substance, you're giving kids the tool of their own physiology to do what it is naturally able to do, which is to reset and find peace and ease and focus and energy and everything they're looking for. And it's all built in, right? And we are always searching for it, and yet it's all right there. So for me, breath work for young people is our birthright. It's like you were given this remarkable gift of a body. You weren't given a manual.
Yeah.
We come here, we use it, I would say, in ways it's not designed in terms of how we're engaging with screens. Like that's not what the brain was built for. It's wreaking havoc on our physiology and psychology, and we don't know how to reset it. But it's not rocket science. It's simple, right? So use tools that are time-tested. These practices are not something that we came up with in a laboratory at a university 10 years ago. They're not the new cutting-edge thing. These are things that are for thousands of years have been honed as a science based on their impact on human physiology and psychology. And so it's remarkable. When I first learned this, I was elated and furious.
Furious because you didn't learn about this sooner?
I suffered so much unnecessarily. I spent so much time and money and strain on substances and therapies or solutions or some external thing I was chasing, and all the time it was right here, under my nose. A few breaths away was peace and ease and energy and focus and joy and productivity. Come on. And our kids are dying, literally, and we've got to do something very different.
Hey, a quick pause. If you're listening to this and thinking, I need more peace in my day, more clarity in my mind, then I'll really encourage you to check out The Art of Living. The Art of Living offers a technique called Sky Breath Meditation, used by CEOs, pro athletes, and high performers around the world to recharge their energy, clear that mental fog, and reset the nervous system in minutes. They offer programs both online and in person. It is science-backed and it works. Head to artofliving.org to learn more. So when you started teaching educators and students, did you start noticing the same like light bulb shining back up moment?
Yeah, and that was actually the proof in the pudding. So in one way, the proof in the pudding was my own experience, obviously.
Right.
But there's always this wonder, well, maybe this is just me. It can't be this good or everybody would be doing it, right? And then I started sharing with other educators and they were having similar experiences, right? They were finding their smile. They were coming back again to the same chaos, but with renewed joy and energy and really feeling their purpose. Look, educators move off of their purpose. You don't do it for the paycheck. right? But when you're burnt out, you don't feel that purpose, you don't feel that joy, you become reactive. So to see them get that feeling of why they're there back and really love teaching again, that was so meaningful to me. And that's one of my biggest passions today, is giving this to educators. Because again, we're seeing the burnout, we're seeing the turnover, and they need that support. And then it was the kids. So I first brought this to summer school, which is not where kids want to be, right? And I thought, if they can have value with this there, then there's really something to it, because they're not, excited to show up. And so I brought this teacher into Philadelphia, and he worked with students in summer school, and they loved it. And instead of, rushing out at the end of the class, they were sticking around, and they were sharing how they were teaching their parents and how they were using it. See, the beautiful thing about teaching breathing to kids is that they're not going to do it if they don't want to. You're not going to sit here and force a kid to do breathing, right? It's not like I can say, finish your homework. This is something where you're going to invite them to do something with their body that I can't control, and often I can't even fully observe, right? How much they're doing it with fidelity. So the beauty of it is that they do it because they experience the benefit, right? They actually very quickly shift, and then it's like, wow, that's mine, right? I can do that. They're empowered. And so instead of it being something where I'm telling them, you should do this and go do your breathing or make sure you don't do drugs, right? All these things we say to kids that they're like, okay. Here, it's like, give this a shot. See how you feel. If that serves you, it's yours. And they open their eyes and they say, thank you. I haven't felt like that since I was like a little child. You hear this from relatively young children, how just incredibly refreshed they are. They will knock out completely. We'll do the sky breathing in schools, and kids are gone. They're so exhausted already so early. And they just value it so much, and they share it with their peers and with their parents, especially the little kids. And they tell you how they're using it for sports, for before a test, when they're doing their homework, when they can't sleep, when they're in a conflict, when there's conflict at home. And it's just, it's so rewarding to hear how somebody is benefiting from this tool, and the tool is themselves.
I guess like there's a certain sense of sovereignty that comes over your own body, right? Like a certain sense of freedom, a certain sense of power and authority, in the sense like that, I have a say over what I feel. I have a say over, how I respond to a situation. There's a certain sense of, I don't know how to say it, like confidence that probably comes along with it.
It's profound,
right?
The empowerment of that, right? We teach a little process for kids about being button-proof, right? In life, we're always getting triggered by something. And for young people, it's constant. So we ask them, what happens to them when their anger button gets pushed? And it could be jealousy, it could be fear, sadness. We have so many buttons, right? Yeah. But kids will tell you that when their anger button gets pushed, it's, a strong reaction. Some kids will say they'll black out and they'll just start throwing punches, right? It becomes so overwhelming. Well, we take a look at it and say, okay, so, I pushed your anger button. You feel all this frustration and intensity and tension. It's not pleasant. What am I getting? Well, I'm getting what I want. How am I feeling? Well, I'm feeling good, right? Who has more power in this situation? I do. Why'd you give your power away? And they kind of look at you because they've never thought of it in that way, right? Their thought is like, you disrespected me, like it's going down, right? It's just a reaction. It's very quick.
Right.
But the reality is you're a puppet. Yeah. You're a vending machine. I can push sadness or fear and anger. I'm getting exactly what I want. Like, I know what you're going to do.
I love this analogy.
And so it's so powerful then when they realize, wow, I'm losing my power every time my emotions take over and are out of control. And so then we challenge them. Can you be button-proof? For 24 hours, can you maintain the awareness that you don't want to give your power away? No matter what somebody says or does, to take your power, to push your button, can you not give it away? And they'll say, yeah, they'll take the challenge, but it's not easy.
Right.
It's not easy because the emotions are so overwhelming, right? When an emotion comes up and you tell it to push, you try to push it away, you tell it to go away, good luck. Now you're stuck with it.
Yeah.
Carl Jung said this beautiful thing, whatever you resist persists.
Right.
At the level of the mind and emotions, If you try to push away a feeling, a thought, then you're stuck with it. You're glued to it, right? We tell ourselves to fall asleep and good luck, right? Your spouse tells you to relax. Ooh, right? Husbands still learning this. So when kids understand this, they value it, but what do you do when those emotions come? What can you actually do? And so we ask them, well, what happens to your breath when you get angry? Do you notice the shift in your breath? And we help them see that for every single different emotional state, there is literally a correlating state of breath. There's fascinating studies on this where tens of thousands of people from huge demographic variants, they've shown little video clips to elicit an emotional reaction and track their breath, exact same breath response. And then they invert it and ask them to breathe in a certain way and share, how do you feel? And they'll write fundamentally the same answer, right? It's the same two-way street. So then we'll teach a breathing practice where the kids can very quickly settle the system. And now they have this tool right in the moment. They don't need to close their eyes. It's just a very gentle shift in the breath. And all of a sudden, I have a physiological strategy that I can use to settle anxiety or anger or fear or whatever it is that is taking me away from where I want to be. And suddenly they're able to respond to situations instead of react. The beauty of it is that we don't need to tell them how to act even. We're not saying, this is right and this is wrong. The question is, do you have any control? Are you in control? Or are you just a puppet of all these situations in your life? And that hits.
Yeah.
So you said it beautifully. It's a remarkable source of power and empowerment.
So I'm guessing like it's such a good product, right? Like people would be just all over you. So you've scaled the program, right? How many schools is it in now?
So we've worked with over 265, 6 schools over the course of the last 20 years. Okay. Our model has become much more about depth than breadth. Originally, when the program started, we went and we taught a course. We would go into school and we would teach a course and we moved to the next school. Yeah. And we can still do that, but the reality is it helps to have some consistency with these practices. There's benefit you get from doing it just once. There's much more benefit you get from doing it on an ongoing basis. Right. And it helps to have reminders to help you to understand, I can just use it when I need it. So we shifted our model from just going into schools and delivering a course through PE or health and elective where we're teaching these practices and these, both the awareness lessons like button proof and the physiological techniques like victory breath would be the strategy you'd use and the sky breathing, to working with schools to build not only comprehensive delivery of curriculum, but also regular practice, daily reset, where every single day for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, the whole building stops and they use these tools. And in order to do that, we make ourselves available on a longer basis. And that also allows us to work one-on-one with kids and provide coaching. And we found when there's the combination of these things, deep instruction, ongoing practice, and continual coaching, then you really get an opportunity to grow in this work and to integrate it deeply.
So I think it's a big impact. 265 schools is not a small feat by any means, but also how many schools are there in the US? Like probably.
We're this is a drop in the bucket.
Drop in the bucket, right? In that sense.
We have so much to do. And right now we're working with, 40 some schools in the deeper capacity, working with the districts to really build a model of how you can integrate this and sustain this. So we started putting a lot more attention on training educators. First, for all the educators to have the tools for themselves, but then finding the right educators in the building who can own this.
Who can be the champions.
Who can be the champions and the facilitators. The thing about it is that it isn't an overnight process, not just a manual that we hand somebody. First, the educator really does need to become a practitioner. Right? So the first step is not even a professional development. It's in many ways a personal development for the educators. Then once they can say with conviction, this does work for me, then we can help them become facilitators. And the truth of the matter is it has more to do with one's conviction than any single lesson plan, because we're not convincing kids, right? We are inviting kids, and your own conviction that it works is central to making an invitation that anybody's going to take.
Interesting.
But the results, I'll just share very quickly, in the schools that have implemented the model that we propose of everybody get the instruction, the adults, the kids, learn how to deal with your stress. Let's take that time and learn this. Let's take time to practice. And let's make sure that when you need help, that's available. Those three things, those schools have seen remarkable shift in everything from behavioral incidents going down. We've seen up to 90% reduction in disciplinary actions and infractions in schools.
Wow.
To academic increase, we have schools that have had 15% increase in GPAs among the students who received the work. We've had schools that had literally their honor roll increase over a series of years from a little over 100 to over 800. We have schools that their adequate yearly performance went from in the 20s to in the 90s. I mean, these are the numbers that matter to schools in terms of their funding, in terms of their teacher performance, right? And we see the shift there in dramatic ways. And often people are shocked because these numbers I'm sharing are remarkable, frankly. To me, it's not shocking. Because the reality is you have stressed out individuals. And a stressed mind is not an efficient or effective mind. You can teach the most beautiful lesson as an educator. If your kids are not present, if they're overwhelmed, if they're tired, if they're upset, if they're distracted, good luck. It's not happening. So our whole mission is to take a little bit of time and with a very efficient tools optimize the mind, the state of mind where all the learning is happening, right? So we put all our attention on the subject matter that we're teaching in schools, and it's a critical that we do. But if we don't take the time to actually address the mind where the learning is happening, we're never going to have the results. And when we do take that time and you address the mind and the hearts where the learning and the interaction lives, what you see is that the academic performance rockets. What you see is that the behavioral issues decrease. What you see in the mental health metrics is profound as well. And I'll say this, the number one thing that I look to for a sign of our success is not the GPAs and it's not the number of suspensions. It's the climate. Because when you think about the amount of time our kids spend in schools, it's remarkable. Our kids are being raised in schools. And when you walk into a building that's tense or stressed or disconnected, that's
those are
palpable.
the kids you're raising.
And that's what the world they live in. Right? When you have everybody learning tools that brings ease, connection, inner connection, and connection between people, because when we're centered and peaceful and joyous, we connect so much more easily, right? And you have a space where people are happy, where they're smiling, where they're greeting each other, then that's a space you want to come learn. And I can't overstate how meaningful that is. When you create an environment where kids want to be, because the teacher is smiling at them and not scowling at them, the teacher has the energy to welcome them into the classroom instead of rushing to get things ready, these little shifts make all the difference. I'll share one quick anecdote. There's an educator we work with who is in Texas, and she's not a facilitator of this work, but she was struggling, and one year she had over 150 disciplinary incidences in her room.
Wow.
Which is a lot, but I've heard many more. It's wild what can happen in some schools when every day it's conflict and you're like wrestling with the kids, right? Over the summer, she learned the sky breathing. She did a course for herself. The next year, she had 6.
From 150?
From 150 to 6.
Wow.
Now, did we teach her a new curriculum to deliver? No. Did we teach her how to teach the kids these practices? No. Her presence was so different once she had the tools, right? That classroom was transformed. Now build that out to a building level. When you have everybody learning these tools, all of the incidences that are fundamentally coming from stress, they start to fade away, right? Now you have a different world that our young people are going. So we talk about how are we going to change the world? Yeah, it starts at the home. It starts with me. All that is true. But at a very practical level, we send all of our future to these buildings to prepare them. And they're going to take over this world.
Yeah.
If that environment they're in is chaotic and stressed and tense and violent and all of these things, that's what we're raising. We just need to look ourselves in the eye in the mirror and acknowledge that. and say, are we willing to really create spaces where people are cared for and feel loved and respected and are happy? And to address their stress is maybe the most efficient way to do that. We can change buildings, we can add programs and experiences. That's great. But if you take the inner state of each of the human beings in that building and you shift it, then actually the building doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Not to say it doesn't matter, but you can work on changing the surroundings all day long. If the inner state is off.
Yeah.
So
what's one of the most beautiful things that a kid would have come to you after learning the breathing or has said to you?
Things like my mind has more space. Is one of the things that I love hearing. I feel peace and I'm happy and I just keep smiling. Kids will just be honest, and they'll say that I've got issues at home and, really struggling and I've lost this person in my life or this thing is happening. It was really impacting. And now I have something that I know can bring me back my smile, right? And they say these profound things. I think for me, the most beautiful thing is what they don't say is just the look.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you as a teacher, you look out at a classroom and you see all these people looking back at you or distracted. And then you do the practice and then you've got all these smiles coming back at you.
Yeah.
And the volume goes down and the climate changes. I just spent this past weekend with a gentleman at this point, he's now 30 years old, but who learned this as a senior in high school. And he was in a situation where he was on his last lifeline in education. He was having a lot of issues. He was involved with gangs. He had been kicked out of a few schools. And he was now in a school where if he was kicked out again, it was it. And this was, a decade plus ago that he got to experience the Sky Course in his school. And at first he was like, what is this? And why is this here? And I don't care. And then he did the breathing and he felt different. He felt relaxed. And look, it's funny, the kids will frame this in their language, right? So this is a young man who was smoking and doing other things at that point in his life.
Yeah.
And the kids will say, let's go roll up some breath. Let's go get lit. Like they see how high it makes you on life, how good you feel. Anyway, that was an aside. But this young man gave it a shot and it was hugely transformational for him, right? He ended up graduating. He left the gang. He made massive shifts in his life from a tool that was able to give him peace and help him manage the stress he was going through. Well, this young man ended up coming and teaching for us. And he came all the way from California to New York to teach kids this tool and to pay it forward, right? And he did that just as an interim year before going to school. And then he went and got a degree and moved on in his life. And I haven't been as connected to him. And I just got to reconnect with him and hear from him again, just how transformational that was in a moment in his life where he needed it most. And how eager he was to get back into the practice. The reality is we don't expect every kid to do this every single day. It's not realistic. But the thing is, once you have it, you have it.
Yeah.
Right? Know that when I need it, when life gets hard, when I'm overwhelmed, when it's kicking you in the face, you have a tool that's right there. And he shared how he'd gone back to it in moments in his life where he needed it, and that now he was really eager to get back into his practice, right? And so for me, that's the key. It's not that we're going to, again, just like with the arts, I was looking to make professional artists. The idea isn't to make, little yogis that do their breathing every single day. Some will,
Yeah.
Right? But the truth is that every child is going to go through hardship. It is the reality. It's life's journey. We want it. It's how we grow.
Yeah.
We need adversity. But if you don't have the tools to navigate challenges well, you don't build up the resilience in a healthy way. It becomes trauma, right? But when you can navigate stress, you get stronger. Then you can take bigger risks. Then you can move farther out of your comfort zone. Then you have the confidence to go take on the things that need to be addressed. See, we have real challenges in our world right now. And we need individuals who are not overwhelmed by it, but who say, bring it on.
Yeah.
Let's go find solutions, who are willing to take responsibility. And taking responsibility can be scary. It can be exhausting. And when we're stressed out and overwhelmed, we usually don't do it. We usually fall into complaining and we feel like victims of the situation, right? Educators have plenty of complaints. And often I see them feeling like victims of a situation that how can I change this environment, right? And kids, it's the same. I don't have control. I don't have the power. This is being done to me. And it's so easy to feel victimized. When you can address the stress and take it out and let it go and show up with energy and ease, then you can take action against the challenges you're facing. Then you can start to find some solutions, do something and take responsibility. And that brings ability. That brings growth. That brings movement. That brings joy. And it brings the solutions we need, right? So to me, this is central to all the solutions we're going to find in our world right now. We look at climate and we look at violence and we look at how are we going to manage technology, all these really glaring questions. For me, the solution actually starts in the capacity of our young people to navigate challenges that they're going to walk into.
So if somebody is listening to this, Elan, and they're inspired by you, how do they get in touch? How do they bring Sky Schools to their communities, their kids, their schools?
Yeah.
How do we do that?
You can go to our website, skyschools.org, and you can reach out to us. There's a contact form, and you can invite us to have a conversation with you. And the first thing we'll do is give you an experience, right? Here I'm talking about it.
Yeah.
I'm referencing data and sharing, the anecdotes of transformation we see, but the best thing is to have an experience. So we will invite anybody who reaches out to us to come have an experience. For educators, almost every Monday night, we have a free workshop where they can come and have an experience of this.
Wow.
And if you're an administrator listening to this, we will bring it to you. And we'll do it virtually or in person, and we'll give you 30-minute, 45-minute, a real taste of this that's tangible. And you see if you experience quickly a shift, a release, a reset that you find value in. And if you find value in it, then we'll help you pay it forward. And that's our approach. So we're available. And also, if your school isn't, if you're a parent listening to this, there are courses that can be done over the weekend or the evening. Kids can learn this outside of a school setting as well.
Nice.
You can also reach out to us and we can provide you with those opportunities. So our invitation to anybody listening is to reach out and receive a gift from us. Let us let you feel this. And then if you would like to go deeper and learn the sky breathing, that's my highest recommendation. Because the real transformation we see comes from the power of that tool to reset the nervous system. And I can't describe that technique here simply.
You have to feel it.
You have to feel it.
Experience it.
Yeah.
One last question to kind of close the loop.
Sure.
Is if that 11-year-old Elan would come and meet you right now, what would he say?
First, you've got this, and you're in just the right place. As in, I had to take that journey. And in life, we have to take the hard journeys to find ourselves, to find purpose, to find meaning. Those would be my encouragement. It's okay. Trust the process. But then I would give a tool.
Okay.
What I needed that I didn't get was a tool I could use when it became overwhelming. The purpose is not to shelter our kids. The purpose is not to fix everything. Nobody's going to come and give the answer for our lives, right? We wouldn't want that. But how to navigate those moments that can break you. I've buried so many friends. I've buried friends from my neighborhood where there was a real need for resources and support and opportunity. And I've buried friends who had every resource. But whether it was suicide or addiction, there was something missing.
Yeah.
Right? And to find that thing that's missing, you've got to go through this crazy journey, and to be able to regulate through it is everything. You know, there's going to be the hard moments, and we want that, but to be able to have a tool so that you can go through it without breaking.
Yeah.
So that you can feel strong enough to sit in the unknown, to sit in uncertainty, to face adversity, to stretch yourself and pursue the things that matter, to take on the challenges we face, whether they're social or environmental, political. All these things need massive action. And where do we get the energy to do it? We need to be fortified. We need real resilience. And so I would give a tool. Long answer. I'd give sky breathing to 11-year-old Elan.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. And Elan, thank you so much for your time today. And it was wonderful talking to you and connecting with you.
Thank you so much. I'll say this last little thing.
Yeah.
I know we're past, but there is a horizon of education really transforming.
Mm-hmm.
And so while I'm talking about the trends that I see that are so alarming and where youth mental health is going, where what we're currently seeing in schools for educator burnout, right? There are fascinating models in many places in the world, including here in the US, where we're realizing that human connection and space for different ways of relating and learning really yield results. And in places like China right now, they're doing remarkable things with helping young people to really tap into their inner wisdom, their intuition, and to learn that we have incredible intelligence far beyond book learning and intellect and rationale, which is what schools focus on, is building the intellect and rational thinking, and it's wonderful. But we have not only incredible capacity in our breath to regulate internally, but we have incredible capacity to access information and wisdom for ourselves. And we're seeing through the Art of Living intuition process, kids learning to access that intuition and being able to do remarkable things in terms of literally seeing with blindfolds and things that sound maybe absurd to folks, but that we see day in and day out their capacity to do. And why am I sharing this? It isn't that we need to teach kids to be able to do a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. That isn't what I'm suggesting is the future of learning. But when young people learn to trust themselves and trust their intuition, their social emotional well-being transforms. Their confidence skyrockets, right? The way they relate to people transforms. The way they study, their focus. All of these things that we work so hard to help them develop come out very naturally when they learn. This is what we're seeing, right? And so I think as much as we're going into the AI world and maybe we're nervous about how it's going to impact learning and education, what kids will do and what jobs, there's the other side of this. The deepening of the human development is also emerging and is exciting. I
would be a skeptic if I had not seen it for my own self and my own eyes. I have a niece who took the intuition program.
Yeah.
And there are two levels to it, right? Like, so on the second level, and it might sound a little bit out there, but she started writing in a language she didn't like. None of us knew, and as my brother had to take a picture of it and put it on ChatGPT, it was a very well-formed sentence in Italian or something like that. And she's never learned Italian. My brother's never enrolled her in an Italian language class. She just meditates, and she just started writing stuff and downloading information or accessing information like that.
Yeah.
He's been able to do like blindfold reading and things like that. So it sounds very crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what it sounds. I mean, when I first saw it, I was like what, like, you know. But it's real.
Me too.
It's real.
Yeah, it is real, and I won't go deep into it. I'll throw a reference here.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this podcast, also check out something called the Telepathy Tapes.
Yeah.
The most recent episode that just came out at the time of this taping is the season finale of season 2. It's called Mindsight. I believe it's episode 11. And in Mindsight, they really look at this phenomena and different programs that are teaching these skills. The reference I made to the schools in China, spoken about much more in depth with educators who are doing that. And you can hear more about what abilities are seen and replicable and how neuroscientists are testing this and really the rigor to be put around it. One thing that I'll share as just a consideration, because it sounds so remarkable and unbelievable. We maybe all are familiar with certain coincidences that happen and we say, oh yeah, there's some person who has that ability, we can accept that. But to think that all of us have it, that all of us have an intuition that is capable of being so precise. I will say intuition is always accurate. It's simply a matter of, are we catching our intuition? Are we using our intuitive thought? It's hard to accept, but this framing I'll offer is one of the things I heard in that episode that I thought was very interesting. You know, we think of our brain as somehow maybe the source of consciousness. Some of us, like our brain is where all of this is happening and generated. The thoughts, the feelings, everything is coming out of that center. And one of the framings that I heard on that taping was someone saying that think of it much more as a filter, right? We are all part of and swimming in consciousness. I mean, our cell phones are picking up signals. We accept this, that information is traveling in different forms and different waves and different devices can pick it up, right? And so our brain is able to, and we're able to catch certain things and we can learn to catch more. Yeah. The information is there. It's a matter of, can we become familiar with the process of catching that first thought, that intuitive thought, and trusting it. And so actually when we do all these exercise and activities, the blindfold reading, the downloading of languages, telekinesis, there's some merit in those abilities, but the reason really that I feel they're so valuable is that they help the young people to trust
themselves,
the intuition, right? It's positive reinforcement that, oh, that was my intuitive thought and it's accurate and I can learn to feel and identify it more and more effectively. Now, I'm not suggesting that our goal is to have kids know the answers on tests. That's not the point. The point is for a young person to know what relationships are good for me. Right. Walk into a room and know who's a good friend and who should I connect with and what career path should I follow, what interests, because we have these feelings, these intuitive thoughts that come through and then we doubt them. Then we second guess them, right? And then we get caught in our analysis. And the consequence of it is look at all of our lives and a lot of the choices we regret. And what if we had the compass to navigate life? And I would say we all have that compass. We need to learn to use it.
Awesome. Well, I think this is a great place as a cliffhanger to end the episode in the sense, because then all of you who are watching this or listening to this can research for yourself and find out more about the intuition program. And maybe we should sit down for a part 2 of the conversation where we go just talk about that.
Would love to.
Because I feel like our conversation is just starting.
It's a rich
like it's
subject.
starting to get interesting. Okay. Well, we'll end it here, folks. But thank you, Elan, again, for showing up. I know you have a flight to catch. 11:26.
Is it?
It is.
Interesting.
I think I'll give you a ride.
Let's see what happens.
But thank you. All right. Take care, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Hey, a quick pause. I want to share a resource I've personally trusted for years. And when it comes to living well, not just in moments of meditation or reflection, but in everyday life, what we put into our bodies matters deeply. And that is why I love Shri Shri Tattva. It's a brand rooted in authentic Ayurveda, from daily wellness supplements to natural personal care, all crafted with ancient wisdom and modern purity. No shortcuts, no hypes, just products that support real well-being from the inside out. For me, it's all about alignment between what I practice and what I teach and how I live. And Shri Shri Tattva helps me bring some of that care into my daily routine. You can explore their offerings at shrishritattvausa.com. I highly recommend checking them out. The link is also in my description below. I want to share something I've been personally loving. Shankara's Ghee Sutra is one of those rare products where ancient wisdom meets modern skincare. It's crafted from ghee that's churned 10,000 times. Yes, 10,000. Blended with Ayurvedic botanicals like hibiscus, bamboo, and it penetrates deep, up to 7 layers, to nourish, hydrate, and bring your skin back to life. No harsh chemicals, no surface level fixes, just deep, authentic care from the inside out, like everything we talk about on this show. You can check it out at shankara.com, and trust me, your skin will thank you. The link is also in the description below.